All right, so it's flashing now. That means it's got 1 minute. Okay.
So when it goes green, start. Charlie doing the alcohol. Is that what that was? No wonder it sounded so watered down.
I don't know if I like how it's flashing at me. It. Yeah.
Repeat.
That means send more rounds, by the way.
I have a comment that may be useful. Eric,
So it just went green, which means I'm supposed to start. Hi, my name is Nathan Wolf, or Nate Wolf, or I go online by Cubicle Nate. You may or may not have heard of me. Probably not. I'm a nobody. But what I do like to do is a thing called Linux Saloon. And it's every Saturday night, to include tonight, we do it's like a place to get together to talk about, to discuss anything technology, open source, and where, because it's a Linux Saloon, where Linux is always on tap. Ha, it's a joke. There's tons of beer jokes with Linux, so that's kind of how it goes. So each show we have a talk about a project. Generally it's a Linux distribution, but it could be centered around a desktop environment or application. Pretty much anything that is Linux tech and open source related is on the table for discussion. And then I introduce myself as Nate. I'm a Linux, fitness, and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. I don't know if there's any OpenSUSE people in here. Yeah, besides you. But I love OpenSUSE. It's kind of my happy place in Linux. So well, it would have been Mandrake, but they died. Anyway, so Linux Saloon, it's like an online Linux user group. We have a lot of really upbeat, constructive conversation there about many wonderful projects. And it's fueled by the passions of the different developers and whatnot. And we have different people come on and talk about their projects. So like last week, for instance, we did have someone come on and talk about self-hosting your robot overlords. So like AI that they run locally and how they do that and whatnot. So Linux is part of the Tux Digital Network. So if you've heard of Destination Linux or Hardware Addicts or This Week in Linux, it's part of that family of shows. I'm also a podcaster there for Linux Out Loud. And it's a lot of fun. It's all a lot of fun. So one of the regular guests, or panelist, I shouldn't say guest. Panelist is Mark. He joins me every week. Sometimes he's late.
I'm Mark Ulmer.
and he's sometimes late, but it's okay, because sometimes I start the show late anyway, because things happen anytime you're streaming live. But we always appreciate anyone is invited to just join. So if you want to join, it's Zoom, so I know that's proprietary software. Please hang on to your fruits and vegetables. But it seems to work the best for everybody who gets involved. I've tried Jitsi, and there's been some others, but it just didn't quite work out for me. So it's every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, or I think it's 1 UTC Sunday, basically. And it's family friendly, so we ask that you keep your language to things that I don't have to explain what you're saying to my kids. That's really what it boils down to. And and actually, a lot of the shows are not very structured necessarily. It kind of meanders a little bit, so it's not necessarily always going to be staying on track. But I think as like, if you go to a bar or a saloon, whatever, and you start talking, just like the conversation just kind of meander around there. I have an agenda of things to talk about, and I try and keep things on track, because sometimes you can go on to like ALE, we got into talking about potty training chickens. So that does happen. It's just kind of weird. Sometimes things just do that, and that's what happens. So I also wanted to talk, Mark, you said you want to talk about ALE as well. It's kind of a similar thing. Well,
let me finish talking about Linux Saloon
okay.
A little bit. So one of the things I enjoyed about joining the Linux Saloon is we'll have developers walk in the saloon, and one of the speakers here at the conference was Thomas, and he does the Draugr OS. And from time to time, and if you look back in the YouTube history, you'll find that he's joined us and given a talk on his distribution that he maintains. And it's just really good to actually hear from some of the developers and such. So there's a wide variety of experience on the Linux Saloon, but there's definitely, when a developer shows up and can answer direct questions for a distro, that's usually, that's awesome, right? So look back, and then Nate, Nate does a great job of editing the videos afterwards and such. So hope it's valuable. Sometimes they run long, right? We do like 2-hour sessions.
It's supposed to be around 2 hours.
Yeah. But
Sometimes I say to myself in the beginning of the show, I'm going to cut this thing off at 1:45, then it goes like 2:15. So, these things just happen.
And then, let me tell you about the Atlanta Linux Enthusiasts. I'm part of I'm one of the co-organizers there. While the group is primarily in Atlanta, ever since COVID, we've gone online and we've decided to stay online. So we meet every Sunday, except for if Sunday falls on Christmas Day. But every Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. There's no set agenda. It's really just to get user help with Linux. And in the recent Sundays, we've helped people with they have printer problems. One gentleman had a scanning problem. And then, Ulfnick, who joined the Linux Saloon last week to talk about AI and running that software locally, he actually also joined the ALE meeting and went through some of the software there, too. So, again, there is a wide, various experience there. You have some retired folks, some corporate folks, even a previous, aerospace engineer. Programmer, and we're all online, and again, you're welcome to just join in, pop in for one of the, each Sunday, and then just ask a question if you want, just listen in. We do that on Jitsi. So any questions about that? But you're all welcome. ale.org is where you find out more information.
You go to linuxsaloon.com for Linux Saloon. Yeah, so sorry about that, linuxsaloon.com. I'm going to be repointing where it's pointing right now. It's actually pointing out my personal site, cubiclenate.com/linuxsaloon, but it's going to be pointing to Tux Digital here pretty soon. But I got to get off my duff and do that. So, and then also I do some other things. There's just, because there's 2 more minutes to fill here. What's that? 3 minutes. So I also have a, well, I just, I don't want to take, if you want to check it out, it's kind of it all started actually because of Jupiter Broadcasting, and everyone always talking about, their favorite distribution. I decided to talk about mine a lot, which is OpenSUSE. And and just the different nonsense that I do there is anything from building a 1970s retro terminal looking modern computer to things dealing with using FreeCAD or whatever else. So there's a lot of just kind of mostly nonsense here actually. I call it my blatherings because a blog has.
Let's show the computer on the video.
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go.
There you go.
And it does run OpenSUSE because
It's all 3D printed.
it has to.
Spin around. We got some
New stickers,
new stickers on there.
and then the guts are inside. So it's a project that already exists. Now it's on here. I can probably actually search it. It's a Pi 4 right now. Yeah, I think I'm gonna change it to like a framework board. I think. Largely because I think it can better power management. So, but it's a I have a little video on there as well too. all the parts list and everything else. So it is a stray from the original project, and I explain why. But basically, the original one didn't have any provisions for making it battery powered. So I designed some back plates on there to make it so it would actually. My daughter actually hammered it all together. But just to explain, just to have it run, like a laptop would, or a luggable computer, I guess. So that's how I have all the lists of any of the things I purchased, so that you can do that yourself.
Which printer did you use?
It's an Ender 3, but I had to modify it. I put a direct drive printhead on there, because the not direct drive, I keep seemingly wearing out those Bowden tubes. So I didn't want to, a single print, like one of the 6 main pieces, took about a day each.
I now own an Ender. I've never used it, but my boys have. But
it's a fantastic thing. I think everyone should have.
Seems great.
You should have, in your kitchen, you should have a refrigerator, dishwasher, range, and 3D printer. I think these all go together fantastically. So, but yeah, you can go to cubiclelate.com. I do things, and most of it's nonsense that I enjoy. So, any questions? If not, that's really about the extent of it for me. Excellent. So, that's it. Who's next?
Who is next?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'll do that. I don't have a computer handy, but I just wanted to talk about my adventure in moving off of Apple after they did the CSAM detection. Now you may wonder, what is CSAM detection? In very simple language, it's basically guilty until proven innocent. They were going to originally scan your phone without your permission, and if they found anything, they would report you to the police without your permission. When I saw that, and granted all my pictures are pictures of my dog, Nandy, but still, I didn't like the idea of losing my stuff. So that started me on a very long journey into self-hosting. And so I currently run an old server by this one company in Kansas. Basically, they rent you ancient servers for really cheap. It's got 24 cores, 24 gigs of RAM, 2 terabytes of disk, and 480 gigs of SSD for $45 a month, which is quite reasonable. Has a lot of IP addresses, IPv4, IPv6, and 100 terabytes of downloads per month, which is quite generous. So I had to get rid of my contacts first. So I use Radical, Radicale, for doing all that, and that'll do all the different versions. It'll do your contacts, it'll do your journals, it'll do your, what's the other one? Calendars. For the web, I'm using the Grav CMS, Grav, which its main claim to fame is, number one, it's static. It's not quite a static site generator, but there's no databases. You just pretty much install PHP 8.2 and a bunch of modules, or just self-host like they do. And that would be grav.munn.me if you wanted to actually go look at the website. I wish I had a computer, but I did not bring one. And the other thing that I've been using for my base OS is when CentOS went the way of the dodo after IBM bought Red Hat, I decided I was done with Red Hat. And so I use Alpine Linux for all of my images now. The main advantages of Alpine are, number one, if I want to upgrade, I just go into the little comp file and I change the number higher, and then I do upgrade. And it always works. I've done it now, 4 years now, and it's great. It also uninstalls things automatically. It's very secure. I don't mind systemd, but I don't like its complexity. Without getting into all the, the drama around that, I like the fact that I control the operating system. And it's also not as much of a target because it uses something called a musl, M-U-S-L, instead of glibc. So if I'm an evil hacker, most of the 90% of the landscape is going to be glibc-based attacking. The other things I also use to limit it, I do not limit who can go to my SSH, but I do shoot you if you try to do too many evil things. there's several different limiters you can use. I can't remember the one I use. It's so long ago. But basically, it's just the idea is if you try to SSH in, do something nasty, I disable keys. You want to basically enable elliptic curve as your main curve, and just use SSH audit and just make it green. That's the short answer if you want to make it positive. I also store all my keys on a YubiKey. So basically, all of my private keys are stored on a YubiKey. So even if they break into my computer, break into my Linux, they still can't get my keys because they might be able to get them while I'm logged in, but they can't easily transport them. And then finally, for pictures, I just use SyncThing, SYNCT8. And I basically have one on my Linux box and one on my Android at this point, which basically just synchronizes the photos and they never go to the cloud. I tried Graphene OS, and I know there was a talk on it. I did it about 2 years ago, and it was great for the first 6 months. And then I unfortunately do have apps I need to use, and they started dying. And I couldn't figure out how to fix them, and I just said, I'm sorry, and so I went back to stock Android. I may be giving Graphene a new try. I like the fact that it had really good battery life and that it was private, but I didn't like the fact that I had to think about my apps breaking randomly when they were fixing things. So there's, open source versus convenience, And finally, for home, I use OPN Sense for my firewall. But I bought the appliance because I got tired of building my own stuff. I'd build my own stuff and it would break 2 months later. And so here's $1,200, which sounds like a lot, but it'll do 20 gigs a second. It filters all the crappy traffic, and it just works. I mean, and we pay them for the commercial version, although they have an open source version, it's stable. So you're still supporting open source because there's the open source version, but I pay for the commercial version because it's stable and I work from home. So I need stable, and certainly, I get a new version every quarter unless there's a need for a fix, which for kind of firewall is kind of nice. The only other thing I think was the major change was, figuring out whether I should build or buy. I ended up building because I'm just an old system builder, so I basically went with an Intel Alder Lake, a very nice AMD mid-range GPU AMD. It was like a 6700, 6750. 64 gigs of RAM, and what's nice is I got a motherboard that has 5 NVMe slots, which means I can have evil operating system on this one and nicer ones on these ones, and then just use like one of the standard GUI things to choose between them. Because I sometimes go, like if I'm doing my media, I do this version, and if I'm doing I have various versions of OSs that I use. And the other final thing that I did was I got one of those little, if you're familiar with hard kernel, they make really good hardware, and one of their things is called the HC4, which basically it's a drive sled. It has an 8-core ARM box bolted onto it, and you just pop drives into it. And I made that my backup server. So it goes out, does an rsync to my stuff. Basically all my VMs are just KVM. I'm using KVM for the VMs. I do containers, but I do them within a VM so that they're a little bit more isolated from each other. And then it just basically does an rsync pull, and because it's not compressed, I only transfer about 100 megs a night. So just little changes. And then on the backup server, I basically take the little file, the raw file, and then I use QEMU to compress it, and then I smash it into Z standard. And then I just have generations of those, so in case I get ransomwared, I have archival copies of the operating system that go back a whole year. Basically I keep 4 monthlies, 7 dailies, and then, whatever, down the road from there. And that's pretty much it. It works really well. I can chant, if I decide I want to go to, I'm not going to use names, but different operating systems or different phone ecosystems, I just point them at my servers, and then I don't have to worry about the backup as much because my contacts and my appointments are probably the most important thing on my phone right now. And that's how I went free because of getting mad at Apple. So any questions?
What was the name of the company that you're hosting with?
Let me just check. I always forget them. This thing's like in my head. Just a sec. Let me get my phone. I'll tell you. And does anyone figure out how to hold a big phone and not have a sore hand? I just got a big phone and I'm really sad. But then you can't charge the stupid thing. No, I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I'm just saying because I've looked at the ring and then I can't charge it wirelessly. Just a second. Let me tell you what it is. And they're a great company. Don't make sure you get their custom package though, because like whenever I do upgrades and if I have an issue, I'll say it's not working. Within 5 minutes, they write me back an email and reboot the server when I ask them to. They'll even put in my own disk drives into it, which is kind of cool. Not many people do that anymore. Yes. I don't think so. But they do have a lot of old, I mean, the Xeon I have has got to be 10 years old. I mean, it's ancient, but it works. It's a lot faster than the cloud. I just have to get in my thing here real quick. Just a sec. Oh, and the optical fingerprint readers don't work worth a damn. Anyways, just a sec here. Just a second here. Wholesale internet. Yep, and it's my.wholesaleInternet.net. They are a wonderful find. If you're not in the States, you're kind of out of luck. But if you're in the States, they're actually very reliable. You can install any operating system on it. I've done FreeBSD. I did Proxmox for a while. It's if you want to just kind of play around with something, and it's pretty stable. I mean, and you get and for that $45 a month, I get a /20. I get 6 IPv4. I get a 64 for IPv6, and I get a gigabit in and out traffic-wise, which is plenty fast for just a little website for home. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thanks, everybody.
Who's next?
There's a switch.
Someone has to be next. Come on, please. Absolutely.
You got your slide deck ready?
That's all right. Hop back there in the camera.
It's not on. Turn it on.
Yeah, there's a switch up on top. I'll get you. Should be live.
Thank you. Wow. Okay, so the feeling of this little cord dangling on my head is kind of going to be a distraction for the whole time. So I don't know how many programmers there are out there, but this is a topic that is kind of top of mind for me lately. You know, there are various surveys around about how Rust is one of the most loved languages for developers now. And, you know, I've done a little bit with Rust, and I'm like, what's so great about it? It's a very opinionated language about how you need to be very safe about how you do things, how you pass around memory and things like that, borrow checking. And I'm a C programmer for like decades. And I feel like Rust is trying to steal our thunder. Because if you've been a C programmer long enough, you know, well, if I'm careful about memory, I'll end up with a good program that runs fast. And if I make a mistake, it's bad. So I kind of want to bridge the gap between what everyone hears today about how Rust is so great because of borrow checking and how C is still really relevant, especially in spaces like networking, kernels, and microcontrollers. You know, C is really still king of microcontrollers. So I spent a couple of years at Amazon in the IoT group where I worked on something called FreeRTOS, which is sort of the leading real-time operating system for microcontrollers. And one of the things we were trying to do in IoT was to increase the quality of our software. So we set out a series of quality metrics to try and really boost what we could do for our partners and for our customers to make sure they didn't have that, oh no, my code crashed, I shipped a bug kind of moment. One of the big revelations for me, and this is after having, written C for a very long time, one of the big revelations to me was that tooling for C is actually still improving. It's still getting better. It used to be Valgrind was state of the art. It was a tool you could run on your program that would find memory leaks. Today, there is something called CBMC. So I thought I would just take a minute, since very few people seem to have heard of this, just take a minute, stand up here and kind of try and raise awareness about this for any C programmers in the world who might, or people considering C. C is actually still a really good language to learn. So what is CBMC? It stands for C Bounded Model Checker. What it does is it takes your C program and it turns it into a sort of simplified but equivalent program that it then translates into a Boolean expression. And then it uses sort of mathematical proof. It does a search. Wow. Yeah, you can tell I didn't prepare this talk, right? So it essentially does a mathematical proof to say that your program does not have any memory leaks, does not exercise any undefined behaviors of C, and it can also do a lot of other fancier things that enable you to do programming by contract. So at that point, you can say your function has these specific behaviors. Okay, let me try and keep it simple. So, CBMC. If you're interested in starting this, the group at Amazon came up with something called the CBMC Starter Kit. It actually includes some documentation, some code to sort of automate your first initial attempts to use CBMC. But when you decide to make a proof of your program using CBMC, you essentially write something that's a harness that says exercise this function with these preconditions, those function with those preconditions, and then you run the solver. That's the word, solver. It solves the Boolean expression. You run the solver, and it explores the entire space of your program to decide if it's even possible for there to be a solution. If there is a solution, then you have an undefined behavior or a memory leak. If there's no solution, then your program is actually proven safe. And that's something pretty amazing. It's why people are using Rust now, because it says it's safe, but C can also be safe. So, that's my public service announcement. Give CBMC a try. Thank you so much. Oh, Lord. Does anybody want to ask a question? Sure.
So these proof of function type programs, typically the one problem I've seen is if it's really complicated, it takes a really long time. What is the bound limit of complexity that it can handle?
I'll give you an example. While I was at AWS IoT, we designed a whole new MQTT library for IoT. All of that code had relatively simplistic harnesses, and we proved all of that code. And then as a separate project, I looked at some of the security concerns facing our customers. And there were a lot of people using things like JSON to serialize data that's being passed back and forth between microcontrollers in the cloud. And the libraries they were using for this serialization, they always had problems. They would do heap allocation, so you didn't have any guarantees about whether they would use up all your memory or have memory leaks. They would have, lots of problems. So our solution was to write an entirely new JSON library that was completely static, had a fixed stack limit, and was entirely provable. Oh, and it also did UTF-8 parsing, which is something you'd be surprised, but there's a large part of UTF-8 which is illegal, and you can exercise this to make naive parsers fail in unsafe ways. So this JSON library included a full UTF-8 verifier. And all of that was also proven using CBMC, again using relatively simple harnesses and this CBMC starter kit approach. So I guess from my own experience, I would say you can prove highly complex programs to be safe from undefined behavior and memory leaks. So, any more questions? Okay, good, because I'm out of courage. I'm done. Thank you.
You did fine. Who's next? Come on up.
Hey, y'all. My daughter came up with me this weekend to SouthEast LinuxFest, and she's very excited about it. But she's like, at some point she said, Daddy, sometime you need to teach me Git. So I thought, if y'all can bear with me, I'm going to teach her Git. And y'all can help me out, because there's going to be some things that I'm probably not going to get right. And, there's some insights that y'all can give me as well on how to use Git. My name is Jace Eckerd. Sorry. Hi. Hi. Okay. Let's see. I didn't even think about sharing the screen. Come here and help me share the screen. I'm not used to Mint, but that's what I installed on her machine, and she seems to like it pretty well. I don't mean to embarrass you, darling. Huh? You've never shared anything? Okay. Mint users? Anyone? Function key? Okay. F9? F9? 7? Okay. Maybe it's control. Okay. Yes? F9. Or F8. Okay. Or F7. Okay. All right. Are you familiar with?
So it's that one.
Yes, that's what I've been doing.
Function F7.
Okay.
Okay.
This is so embarrassing. All right.
Here, just take the window and drag it that side.
Oh, you think it's ever on that side?
Yeah.
Oh, well then I can't see it. I want to share. I don't want that. I want to be able to see what I'm. Windows P. Super P. All right.
One more try.
Okay. Go ahead.
Or actually, there we go. You get it? Hold on. Oh.
Okay. Wait.
Oh. Well, it's over there. You're gonna just have to look over there.
All right. I'm gonna look up here. All right. This is gonna be difficult because I can't. All right. So the first thing you want to probably go to a website or some repository. There's GitHub, there's Bitbucket, and there's GitLab. And I use GitLab for GitHub reasons. We'll say that. And can this tilt? Oh yeah, that'd be good. Okay. So I'm going to create a new project over here. Oh boy. How do I can't even see the whole thing. Oh boy, oh boy. That's about me. Okay, see, this is not my laptop, and I didn't bring my laptop because I was full of myself. I would never need my laptop. Upper left? Okay, thank you. See, I told you I'd need y'all. New project is the plus, obviously. New, oh. Okay, thank you. Sometimes from this far I can't see that thing going on. And it is thinking. Okay, here's a new project. I'm going to create it just, well, let me make a little template. And no, I don't want any of that sort of stuff. I want. Yeah, I thought about that, but probably the reason I didn't was because probably most of the time you're going to be checking into some place, right? So it seems to me that this is kind of the standard way of people think it's doing things. Okay, so self 2023, and we'll call it that. And that's the slug. And how much time do I have? Oh, you're fine. Okay. I'm going to make it just for, okay. I need to pick a group or namespace. Oh yeah, well that's because I got, that's, oh boy. How about just me? Where is me? There's me. At the very bottom, of course. Truck. Okay, here we go. Please do it now. Okay. All right, so what that's doing is it's creating a basic Git repository at GitLab for me. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to immediately clone it from there as soon as it comes up. And it's coming up right now. Here we go. All right, in the meantime, is that big enough for everybody to see? Okay. Control plus is shift equals. All right. Is that better? Fantastic. Move it up about an inch on its way. Okay. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, there's the maximize button. I'm also not used to this. Is it still?
Yeah, well, if you have it maximized, it gets blocked by that black thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, so I tell you what, I'll just pull this up. Ah, shush. Okay, is that better?
Yep.
All right, so we got the import still in progress. Dude. Back off. All right, so I guess a premise. Basically, Git is a version control system, also called source code management system. You can think, or at least the way I do, is I think of things in terms of a public library, where you've got a place where all the stuff is. In this case, it's GitLab, and you check out code like you do a book, and then you have it, and you write into the margins of the library book, and then you put it back, right? You check it back in. That's been the model for years and years and years. So up till GitLab, Subversion was what I had used a lot. And that's especially what it is. With Subversion, you have to lock it, right? So you have to, when you check out the book, you're the only one that has that book. But with Git, you check it out, and it's Git is a distributed version control system. And everyone can do things simultaneously. I'm not explaining that very well, but trust me, that's how it works. Darling, I'll explain it a little better when we're at home. All right, so what I'm going to want to do is clone this. I'm not used to her mouse. There we go. With SSH. And I will, I'm not going to go to SSH. I don't have a key, yeah. All right, so let me do it with, for HTTP. Let's, okay, how do I change it to public then? Okay, never mind. We'll just do it this way, and we can assume some things that are happening. So for right now, I'm going to git clone, and that's to get it from there. And where is the paste? Y'all, I use Enlightenment, and I use Shift Control V. Okay, fantastic. Yes. So that's saying permission denied because I don't have a SSH key. Yes, that's right, because I copied the wrong one. So let me copy the... are y'all entertained? That was not asking for applause. That was like, oh boy, what kind of a mess have I made? I was just kind of like sitting there and wanting to see if there'd be something that'd be interesting to do. Shift Control V. Okay, so that's doing it through HTTP, and that's my thing, and this is my... Please tell me I typed it right. Nope. One more time. Okay. 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 Okay, how do I make my repo public? I appreciate y'all, I really do. And it's in the repo settings, which is here, which is down here. The general, you think? Over here. Visibility. Again, I can't quite see. Expand. Thank you. Can't quite see from over here very well. Private. Okay. Thank you. Thank y'all. I mean, this is what open source community is all about, right? Thank you. All right. So. Okay. Yeah. Upper left. Did I pass it? That's for that section. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of strange, but very bottom of the section. Thank you. Thank you. Win for the open source community. Successfully updated. All right, let's try this again. And we'll do the... Would the SSH version work? Yes. Yeah? Okay. Denied. HTTP. There we go. Okay. All right. And if I type shorthand, it's I've got a .git RC that I have shorthand, so if any command is incomplete. Yes, of course. CD into self 2023, that is the repository. Do an ls-l, and you'll see that you've got the README that came with, that GitLab put there for me, which is a markdown directory. It's a markdown file. And the .git directory is all the meta information about the entire repository. For our purposes, don't worry about what that is. So I'm just going to show what the README is. Basic stuff, right? So let's go in here. Let's say this is my code. I want to edit it and do a change. I don't like this paragraph, so I'm going to delete that. Right? Now I do a status on what I did. Right? That's just whatever changed. So now I'm doing a status, and I see what I've got changed here. In red, it says that I modified the readme.md file. All right, so that's what I want to do now is I want to put that into the repository. So what I have to do is git. Well, okay. Here's where we differ, right? So I like to do things short and quick. I'm going to do a git commit. Tell it what file by hitting tab. the README, and I have to put in a -m message, and I am doing a docs kind of thing to the README. I don't need a space. No, it's not. No, it's not. Docs and removed paragraph. End quote. There. Yeah, all right, so now it's saying I have to do setup stuff. So, as a, whenever you do anything, you have to be sure to have an email address and a, what does it say? Username. All right, so I'm going to do that just for this repository. Git config, and I'm not going to use the global because it's her computer, right? I'm just doing it for this repository. And I'll say my user dot email is, quote, Jace plus self at eckerd.com. Hi, y'all. I'm Jace Eckerd. I'm at self. And let me say that again. My name is Jace Eckerd, quote. This is my actual name with a capital J, proper English, and not email. That is name. See, I would have stumbled across this name because this is like in my standard environment all the time. In my Git RC is my username and my email. So I never think about having to change it because I've changed it, right? Whenever I explain this to you, now this is the first time I've ever done it. You have to edit. All right, so now I'm going to go back up here and say, do that commit again on the README file and add a thing, right? So now I'll do a git status. And it says that I'm ahead of my origin master by 1 commit. Now at this point is where I do a push. Git push, and this may not work. I'm assuming it will not. And I have to say where I want to push it to, right? Actually, let me do, for right now it's assuming, let me, remote. Let me see what remote is. Remote is origin. Let me see a little better what that is. So I'm going to add a -v for verbose. And it's saying that origin, to fetch it from someplace is GitLab. I'm fetching it from GitLab. My username truck, self 2023 is the name of the repository. And also when I do a push, same place, right? You could have 2 different places for what origin is. You can also add multiple remotes. I use this at work in particular, where I have a clone or a fork of the repository that we're doing at work. So there's the one that gets sold, right, whenever we're making our product. And then I have a fork of that, which is one of the little buttons over there. And I commit stuff to my fork of it, and then I do patches to the main. So I have to push up to main. Anyway, right now I'm going to do a push. And how much time do I have? Okay. Thank you. And my password is. Yeah, okay, let me try it one time. Okay, it's saying password token. Okay, so I got 2-factor authentication. That's why it's not letting me in. So now, all right. So that's what would normally have happened is it would show up in the repository. No checking of it. It's just now I've overwritten what's up there. All right. So another great thing that Git has is branching. I'm currently on the branch called, and this might surprise me, master. Okay, nowadays a lot of Gits are called main branch for reasons, and we've gone from master to main, and it's there's reasons. But what I want to do is sometimes you want to work on something else that's, you're in the middle of writing something else, but you need to suddenly work on something else, but it's off of the main branch. So you'll want to do a get branch. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually check it out with a -B, which creates a new branch called self 2023, right? All right, so what I did, and I'm going to look at the status to see what I did. I've got a new branch called self 2023 off of the main branch, the master branch. And right now, there's nothing that I've changed. But if I did want to change something, I could go and do that sort of thing. And so now at this point, I could probably, let's say, for example, that I did do some alteration, and I want to push that back up, I could do a get push, and I want to do it to origin, which is what's locally called, what is called locally of the repository, and then what branch name I want to push up to, and that would be self 2023. And it's going to deny me anyway, but so we'll say that I did that right. All right, so I did it right. Yay. Okay, now what that does then is you've got two branches on GitLab, and GitLab is not Git, but it is a way to manage your Git. And at that point, I would say, I want to do a merge request or a pull request in GitHub parlance between these two, and it'll show you the differences of what files you changed and that sort of thing. I think that's probably enough time, wouldn't you say? Anyone have another suggestion of topics that I could show her that I do everything? Because this is kind of my daily routine. Yes, sir.
A much faster way of like having command line completions with 5,000 different git commands. You can use fish shell, you can use ZSH, and you'll like do git tab, and it will say which one command.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and Bash does that pretty well too. So I hit tab twice, and that's a lot of the. So if I were wanting to do something called cherry picking, which I'm not going to do. Oh, but Git log. Yes, thank you. So that's another good thing is Git log. All the commits that I've had will be in its log. So thank you for pointing that out. So as you can see right here, starting from the bottom, the initial commit was where I went to GitLab and I created a new account, or I created a new thing, repository. Thank you. Then I updated it. And now GitLab did the update there of updated README. That is, they created a new file for me. And then I went and removed the paragraph up here. And you can see that the author is me with my email address. And it gives me the date and time. The commits are unique IDs, and that is how everything is referred to. If you're interested, it's a Merkle table, Merkle tree. SHA-256. Yeah, SHA-256 Merkle tree. Merkle trees are also used in, help me out, Bitcoin, huh? Blockchain, yes, thank you, blockchain. And there's another.
Everyone's favorite GPT uses those a lot.
GPT? Does it?
Some of them are advanced, but they have some of them.
I didn't know that. That's cool. I think I'll relinquish my time now unless anyone has any questions or comments.
TIG is a great utility to do that.
TIG.
TIG.
Oh. Oh,
It lets you see them all. And you can
that's Git spelled backwards.
Yeah, exactly. It's TIG. It's wonderful.
Oh, I haven't heard about that. Thank you. I do want to show, there is one really cool thing that I have to show you. Oh, and there's also restores and removes and that sort of thing. But the, where is it? Not splice, but no, no. There's where you've got bisect. Have y'all used bisect before? Bisect is where over a long history of time you've got so many commits, right? Well, in version 1.0 it works perfectly, but in 2.0, the customer says, "Hey, it doesn't work." Well, all right, so there's got to be somewhere. It works it works in 2.1. But it doesn't work in 2.0. So somewhere in between 2.0 and 2.1, there was a bug introduced. So what bisect does is you give it a beginning time and an end time. No, when I say time, I mean the hash that you saw there, the SHA-256. And what it does, it starts in the middle. You compile it, you check it out from there, you compile it and do the things, whatever tests that you need to do. If the test passes or fails is where you decide, okay, it must be before or after that. And then you half and half and half and half until you find the actual commit where it must be, and that's where you actually change your code and you find that's where the bug was introduced. I don't know if y'all have used Bisect before, but oh, it's awesome. So, anything else? I appreciate y'all's time, and I'm sure she does too. Thank y'all.
We have time for one more short one. So 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes. Yep. Yes, sir.
Like that?
Put it over your head.
I got glasses too.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
You're okay.
I'm good? All right. How can I present here? Get this.
It is. Do you have a?
HMI's on. All right. Is it gonna? Okay. Yeah. What's the Mac command to mirror?
Go to your settings and go to your displays and then do mirror. The little apple at the top,
Yeah.
very far left.
Yeah. I'm there. You can't see it, but shoot. I don't see settings. System preferences?
No, it's display. Just type in displays in the search bar. There should be a search bar in the settings. I can do it for you if you want.
Come on. Thank you so much. Okay, this is going to have to be real lightning talk. And it died. Okay, anyway, I'll do it without that. But what I wanted to get across to you all, my name is Ben Francis. I work on the Platform One project by the Department of Defense. And the main thing I wanted to say about Platform One is that it is an open source project from the DoD. I'm not kidding. You could go to this. You go to p1.dso.mil. DSO stands for DevSecOps, and it is a wonderful Silicon Valley type startup project within the DoD. And anyone here could download that code and run with it today. What does it do? So it's a DevSecOps pipeline, development, security, operations, all smushed together. And I was going to download the script until my battery died, but the script was going to take whatever AWS environment you had, provision an instance, configure 4 nodes on that instance, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, you're going to have a K3S installation that's ready to take applications and approximately 30 applications like Mattermost and Reddit and whatever else you want to run on top of this thing, and it just works. And the community is great. I've been there a week, and I've already got 2 pull requests accepted into mainline, and you can use this, and it's a great tool. So I think I'm just about out of time, but if you got any questions about it, p1.dso.mil. Platform 1. And Platform 1 is made up of a number of projects. The base projects are Iron Bank. Have you heard of Iron Bank containers? They're hardened containers from the DoD that the Department of Defense says these are secure. It has a cloud-native access point, and Big Bang is the on-premises installation, and they have another project called Party Bus where DoD will act as your AWS and run your application. So there you go. Yeah. Yes, I am. Columbia Linux Users Group in Columbia. Sorry.
Say one.
All right. Yeah, I'm part of the Columbia Linux User Group.